I found out in February 2017 that I was pregnant. My husband and I were thrilled to add baby number 5 to the family. We have a little boy, then 3 little girls, and I was hoping to add another little boy. We found out at our 22-week sonogram that we were in fact having a boy. A few days after my sonogram, I received a call from my doctor. The tech had spotted something on the umbilical cord abdominal wall area. My doctor did another sonogram and confirmed that the baby had an omphalocele, or sometimes simply referred to as O. He pointed it out to me, then started to describe it to me. An abdominal wall defect, a hole of varying size in which the intestines, liver, kidneys, stomach, etc. can pass through and grow outside of the body, all while encased in a thin film so they're outside of the body but not exposed. He told me I would have to plan to deliver by C-section at a hospital 3 hours away because we live in an area without neonatal surgeons, and surgery would be the only way to repair the baby after he was born. I was completely devastated. I had always had perfect babies and realized very quickly that I had taken that for granted. It was hard not knowing what would happen. I cried for weeks. I looked up everything about omphalocele that I could find and joined a support group to better prepare my mind. I was going for sonograms once a week with specialists, and they always seemed happy with what they saw. The baby looked healthy, no visible abnormalities. His omphalocele looked to be moderate to small size, containing only intestine. Genetic testing came back normal. With only a few weeks to go, I went to Medical City Hospital in Dallas, where I would deliver, and met with the neonatal surgeon, neonatologist, and toured the NICU. After meeting everyone and seeing the NICU where they would care for my baby, I felt a little more at peace. On September 21st, 3 weeks before my due date, I was admitted to the local hospital for high blood pressure. Because of the danger to the baby and myself, I was then taken by a long and bumpy ambulance ride to Medical City, 3 hours away. After a week of bed rest, they delivered my sweet baby boy early at 37 weeks and 6 days to keep my health from declining further. On September 28th, 2017, my long-awaited baby boy was born, weighing a hefty 9 pounds 5 ounces. We named him Josiah, which means God has healed. This name has a deep and significant meaning to me, and I clung to it during my pregnancy. They brought him over to see me, to touch his cheek, before whisking him off to the NICU. It didn't take long to learn that life in the NICU changes like the wind. It was hard to know what was going on from one moment to the next, constantly watching his pulse and breathing rate, listening to alarms going off. So much happened in a day that each day felt like several days, and it was so hard to keep up. Josiah surprised everyone by how much his lungs needed help. He was intubated on a vent with a breathing tube down his throat for 1 week after he was born, forcefully helping him breathe. He had his omphalocele repair surgery on October 4th at just 6 days old and was completely repaired. Surgery went perfectly, and the surgeon even stitched him a little belly button of sorts. We were thrilled. Then on October 5th, his heart went into atrial flutter, which ended up being the scariest moment of our entire NICU stay. His heart was racing with no outward signs of stress, and they couldn't get it to stabilize. The cardiologist breezed in and quickly explained that they would have to shock his heart to get it back to normal, and my brain could not comprehend what was going on. It all happened and was over in about 15 minutes. This aflutter was unrelated to the omphalocele, but had he been born without the omphalocele, he would have been home by now, and the aflutter could have gone undetected and potentially taken his life. Suddenly, I was thanking God for the omphalocele and the fact that this heart issue came up in the NICU. After being extubated or taken off the vent, he had the nasal cannula put in to continue oxygen, so no more tubes down his throat. And we were able to start trying to feed him orally, whereas before he had been strictly tube fed. We also got more extensive genetic test results back. Josiah tested positive for Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, an overgrowth syndrome which has lots of markers, including omphalocele and enlarged tongue, 2 things Josiah had, and left children at a 600% higher risk for childhood cancer. Devastated again. It was such a roller coaster. Everything felt like one step forward and 2 steps back. I couldn't believe that after all we had already been through, we were still getting bad news. But at the same time, I found it very interesting that everything had kind of flipped. We had always been so focused on the Omphalocele, but it was just a side effect of something else. After weeks of trying to get Josiah to eat from bottles with very little success, he had a swallow study which showed silent aspiration, which means he was breathing in milk as he drank, but he wasn't letting us know this was happening. No coughing or signs of distress. They took him off all oral feeds and he went to being 100% tube fed. First through a nasal feeding tube, then on November 2nd, less than 1 month since his O surgery, he headed back for his second surgery to put in a G-tube. I could not believe it. And get this, they had to do an open surgery, which left him with an incision scar because he didn't have a belly button they could go through. During my pregnancy, I thought I had prepared myself for all the different ways this could play out. But what had actually ended up happening to my baby was so different than I ever imagined. We met with an oncologist to have his initial cancer scans. He will need renal scans done every 3 months until he is 8 years old. He will take heart medicine until he's at least 1 to prevent another atrial flutter. There are lots of unknowns. But once his G-tube was in, he wasn't aspirating anymore. He was able to come off oxygen in less than a day. It was amazing to see the dramatic effect this had. Though he is still tachypnic at times, his lungs are starting to heal. On Tuesday, November 7th, we were discharged and our time in the NICU was officially over after 40 long days. We went home and our family was finally together. It's been a little over 2 months now and Josiah is adjusting really well. Life with a feeding tube is hard, but we're figuring it out together. We will follow up with his cardiologist, oncologist, craniofacial specialist, speech therapy for swallow studies, and more. But I know we'll be okay. My little O warrior is strong. God has shown me so much over the last 3 months of Josiah's life. He has taken care of him and continues to.